Hi, feels like it's been forever. I keep waiting until I can do this right and have the lighting right and the makeup right and the hair right and the topic right and all of that. And that makes it not happen. So we're just gonna, there's an old saying that I love that is anything worth doing is worth doing wrong. So we're gonna do it wrong today and we're just gonna, go with it. Um, I will tell you a little bit more about why I have been so absent lately towards the end of the video, but to start with, I have a package that I want to open and I wanted to share this with you guys. So we're going to start with that. I wish it was the next book in a series. It is not. It is a book. It's a cheat book. I mean, it's sort of a book that it's like a side project that I've been cheating on my novel to work on. My mind has been very distracted with other things, and I'm in a stage right now where I really need to just kind of focus on pulling my life back together. And every quarter, I do a quarterly planning, and I set up a quarterly planner. And recently I have been needing to kind of piece together planners, pieces of this one and pieces of that one, and chunks of stuff that I have printed out myself, or created myself and then printed out and put in. And it's gotten to be kind of a time-consuming project. So I've decided that I'm just going to make my own planner. So I did that. I've over the years done bullet journaling, which had things about it that I loved. I've done Happy Planner. I've done HB90 most recently, which I really loved. This is a it's me, not you kind of situation. And you may see, and I did Full Focus Planner briefly. You may see influences from all of those in here. Plus some things of my own. But you guys, it's arrived. It's a big box. It also has greenies in it for the dogs. So, whatever. But here's my new planner that I made. I decided to just go ahead and put one together that has all of the pieces that I want and get it printed. And I decided if I'm going to get it printed, I might as well put it up on Amazon so you guys can get one too if you want. Don't feel obligated. It is on Amazon under a different name so that it doesn't confuse the algorithms about who's going to like my books. So it's under A.D. Beatty instead of Amy Beatty. It's so hard to get a good pen name out of my actual name, because if you do A.D. Beatty, it rhymes. So, A.D. Beatty. You could also do A. Beatty, but then which one? Or you could do Amy D. Beatty, but then it sounds like I'm going to argue about everything. So I did Amy Beatty for the novels. This one's going to be Amy D. Beatty, despite the rhyming. But I put a dragon on the cover. I like dragons. I need to be thinking about dragons. I need to finish the dragon book that I'm working on. So it's called Once Upon a Time Management Planner, Dragon Edition. This one is dated for Q3, quarter 3 of 2023. I am going to be making an undated edition of this planner, which will be the same, but it won't have any of the dates or moon phases, which are in here. So I will do a planner setup video, hopefully in the next very short while, because quarter 3 is nearly upon us. But I'm really excited about this. So it's got cream paper. I got it as thick as I could, but it's not as thick as I would like it to be. So you may want to do pen tests on this to make sure your pens aren't going to bleed through. But you guys, it's always nice to hold your book in your hand. This is the first time I've done a hardcover. So it's a nice hardcover. It's KDP quality hardcover book. So it has monthly, weekly, and daily planning pages, which I will go over more when I do the setup video. and I may do a plan with me if you guys are interested in that kind of thing. It's time to get my life back on track. I feel like I keep getting derailed by one thing and another. This time, since the last time that I was going to do videos on a regular basis, what happened was not my cancer for a change, although the long-term cancer treatments are still not fun. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of stiffness, there's a lot of joint issues. But I am, if not getting better, at least getting used to that and figuring out what my parameters are and what I can get done in a day. I am going to try out some new organization tools for the next quarter. The planner is one of them. I'm excited. The planner is one of them. I have a couple of other tools that maybe I'll show you over the next little while. I think it's going to be a series of like pulling my life back together so I can write videos more than it's going to be videos about writing. But hopefully we'll get some writing done too. But okay, here's what happened. I think the last time I did an update video, I mentioned that my daughter was sick. She's been sick for kind of a long time. Gradually getting worse, I would say maybe for years. But certainly it took a turn for the worse back in July of 2022, a year ago. She had COVID, and then she didn't really, she got over the COVID, and then she got sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker, and it wasn't like a continuing COVID, it was other symptoms, but they were kind of vague, and she just didn't feel good, and she had a little bit of nausea, a little bit of lightheadedness, a little bit of other stuff, and a lot of fatigue. And at first it was diagnosed as long COVID, and then as it got worse and worse, they said, well, it probably, it seems to be a lot like chronic fatigue syndrome, so it might be chronic fatigue syndrome brought on by the long COVID, or it might just be, nobody's really quite sure what causes chronic fatigue syndrome in some people. Often it's a viral infection, sometimes Epstein-Barr, but it doesn't have to be. So maybe the coronavirus kicked off chronic fatigue, and then it got worse and worse and worse, and the lightheadedness got worse, a lot worse, and she couldn't stand up for very long or even really sit up for really long. She could only walk about halfway across the room before she had to sit down and rest, put her head down. So then they said, okay, well, chronic fatigue syndrome often comes with POTS, which is positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which basically means that when you stand up, or sometimes when you sit up, your blood pressure drops, and then your heart beats really fast to try to keep the blood circulating where it needs to be. And so they gave her some medication to increase her blood pressure to try and help with that, and it didn't help. And she just got sicker and sicker. And so finally her doctor sent her to the cardiologist to see if he could figure out what was going on with the rapid heart rate and the low blood pressure and the fatigue and all of the things that were going on. And meanwhile, she just got sicker and sicker. She lost a lot of weight. And she didn't have a lot of weight to lose to start with. And it was really scary as her mom, watching her just get sicker and sicker and not having any answers, because there's really no treatment for long COVID. They're still figuring out what it is. There's no treatment really for chronic fatigue syndrome. And so we were afraid that she was just going to have to live the rest of her life like that. She had to take incompletes in her college classes, and towards the end of the scenario, she could mostly just lie on the couch and look out the window and watch the birds at the bird feeder. It was sad, and it was scary, and it was really heart-wrenching. Some days I wondered when I was going to need to take her into the emergency room. And it's really hard to write when you're so focused on it, and it feels like a matter of life and death. I felt like I was watching my daughter die in front of me. But I kept telling myself that's ridiculous because she's seen the doctors, right? We've been taking her to the doctors regularly. And so if she was really that bad off, if it was really a matter of she's going to die and I'm watching her die, they would have caught that. They would have said so. They tested things. They took her heart rate and her blood pressure, and we talked about medication, and like we did all the things. So clearly I'm not just watching her die. It just feels like it, and I'm overreacting. So we took her into the cardiologist. I kind of called them to see if we could scooch the appointment closer, and they were able to get us in on a cancellation. And the cardiologist looked at her and said, I don't think that this is her heart. Her heart seems fine. I think it's probably an endocrine issue. So I'm going to refer you to an endocrinologist. And the cardiologist said that he suspected that it was something called Addison's syndrome. Addison's disease. And I had never heard of Addison's disease, but I went home and looked it up, and sure enough, all of the symptoms just seemed like this is what we've been looking at, which is scary because Addison's disease, if it's not treated, is fatal. Fatal. It's serious business. So then we were waiting to see the endocrinologist because the cardiologist didn't feel like he could accurately diagnose Addison's. He just suspected it based on symptoms. And so they did a bunch of blood tests and sent us to the endocrinologist. And when we went to the endocrinologist, we said, the cardiologist thinks it might be Addison's. We looked up the symptoms on the internet because, you look up stuff on the internet. And we think he's probably right that it's Addison's based on the symptoms. And the endocrinologist said, it's probably not Addison's because Addison's is pretty rare. Almost, it's like 1 in 100,000 people. So it's probably not Addison's. And there are a bunch of things that can kind of mimic Addison's. So we're going to test for all of those things, but we'll include an Addison's test just to rule it out. And then after the first round of blood tests, it hadn't been completely ruled out. It was a little bit iffy, so we did some more blood tests. Specifically, we did a test for something called ACTH, which is a hormone that your pituitary gland secretes to tell your adrenal glands to produce cortisol and stress hormones that help your body cope with stress. And that was on a Friday that they did the test. And they called me on the Monday and said, the test shows that it is Addison's disease. And we need to get her on this medication immediately. We have phoned it into the pharmacy that's closest to your house. Go pick it up, get her on the medication immediately. But she had a reaction to a steroid cortisol medication before, which we had mentioned to the endocrinologist. And so I said, are we sure that this is safe? Because she's so sick. She's so weak. I didn't want to give her something that was going to make her violently ill like the other medication had. And he said, well, we don't know if she's going to react badly to the medication, but we do know that if you don't give her the medication, she is going to die. Which, of course I went and got the medication, and as it turns out, she didn't react badly to the medication. The medication is replacement hormones for the ones that her adrenal glands aren't making anymore. And it made all the difference. She went from 1 week laying on the couch watching the birds to the next week she was out gardening in the yard and taking care of the bird feeders, replacing the food and stuff herself, walking around without the lightheadedness, all of that. It just her body needed the hormones that the bodies normally make. But it turned out that I had been watching my daughter die. I had been watching her fade away towards death, and we had been pretty close. So that's what's been distracting me this quarter. She's good now. Mostly we're still working out a few things. The Addison's might not be the only thing that's going on, so continued testing and exploration. But she no longer worries me on the same level, I don't wake up in the morning wondering if I need to take her to the emergency room. Her weight has come back pretty much to normal at this point. But it's been a little scary. And I'm feeling like our family's had about our share of drama for the last couple of years between her and me and some other stuff. My son hurting his knee jumping off the moving truck. I think I talked about that the last time. But I think we've had our share for a while, and I'm really hoping that we can start getting things back on track, back on a normal, whatever normal is for us around here, a normal track. So, like I said, I am kind of revamping some of my systems. I was hoping to get to be a little more physically able than I am at this point. And so at this point, I think instead of trying to go back and do my, get back to where I was before, doing the same household routines and personal routines and habits and things that I was doing pre-cancer, I think I'm just going to have to admit that that's not in the cards, at least in the near future. And so it's time to make some new systems that will work with who I am now, where I'm at, that are realistic for me to hopefully keep up with. So again, beginning with my new planner, it makes me happy, which I will show you more about in a future video, hopefully really within a couple of days. I think that's all I've got for today. So here is my imperfect video, just so that we can keep moving forward. Anything worth doing wrong. So here's my wrong video for you guys. And I will see you again, hopefully very soon.